Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Wonder Woman and Philosophy, the Amazonian Mystique, edited by Jacob M. Held, series edited by William Irwin, narrated by Tristan Morris and Natasha Soudek. Limit of liability disclaimer of warranty. While the publisher and editor have used their best efforts in preparing this book, they make no representations or warranties with respect to the accuracy or completeness of the contents of this book, and specifically disclaim any implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. It is sold on the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering professional services, and neither the publisher nor the author shall be liable for damages arising herefrom. If professional advice or other expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Editor's Note: over the more than 75 years in which Wonder Woman has entertained us, there have been variations in certain names. For example, her mother is referred to as both Queen Hippolyta and Queen Hippolyte. Likewise, the Amazons suffer at the hands of both Hercules and Heracles. Marston used the god of war's Roman name, Mars, not Ares. Thankfully, the change in names is mostly superficial. However, standardizing the use of these names in this volume, although it would simplify matters, would lead to inaccuracies, since alternate versions were in fact used throughout Wonder Woman's history. Therefore, I have deferred to the authors and allowed the use of the name that is most accurate, given the context of the author's essay. Introduction. In and for a world of ordinary mortals. Jacob M. Held. I've been waiting for Wonder Woman, but as anxious as I've been, I've also been a bit wary. The Amazonian princess is complex, and complexity doesn't translate well on the big screen. The small screen fares only slightly better. Wonder Woman is problematic. She's a sexy woman. That can't be denied. But she's also a superhero, a fully empowered woman, even, at times, a god. The masculinity of Batman and Superman befits them as heroes, as strong, powerful, and righteous. By contrast, the femininity of Wonder Woman complicates matters. Objectification is a threat for Wonder Woman. Does her sex appeal diminish her gravitas? Is she less of a heroine and more of a sexual fantasy? And often, resisting her objectification, Wonder Woman can look more like a feminist cause than a hero. Maybe that's okay, though, considering her origins as feminist propaganda. Any way we look at it, we confront the ambiguity of Wonder Woman. She's not just a superhero, nor is she defined by her gender. However, a focus on either overshadows and seemingly diminishes the other. Echoing the existentialist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, 1908 to 1986, I've used the term ambiguity to describe Wonder Woman. Beauvoir uses the term to describe a woman's place in the world. As she sees it, women are caught in a bind, acquiesce to gender norms and lose oneself, or become oneself and lose one's place in the world. So, women are in an ambiguous place, and Wonder Woman emphasizes this time and time again. Is she in love with Steve Trevor? Will she marry? Is she a lesbian, straight, or bi? Do these categories even apply to her? Is she mortal or a god? Is she human or Amazon? Is she American or cosmopolitan? She is always torn between two or more worlds, and is forced to navigate these worlds, thereby creating an identity for herself by defining herself over and against various standards and expectations. She can only become Wonder Woman in opposition, creating a place for herself by continually rejecting previous spaces. Where does she belong? On Paradise Island or in Boston? On Mount Olympus or back on Earth? With a partner or alone? This ambiguity is not unique to Wonder Woman. We all must wonder where we belong. Although Wonder Woman's challenges are hers by virtue of her being female, and although they are more obvious given the way in which society deals with gender, we are all torn between what we are and what we want to become. We are all limited beings who have to deal with our unique situations and circumstances, our race, gender, class, capabilities, and social position. We need to embrace Wonder Woman in all of her contradictions. She is a reflection of and challenge to our norms, our values, our society. She exemplifies our ideals while posing serious questions about the place of those ideals in modern society. She speaks to our better selves while recognizing our frailty. She speaks to excellence in an imperfect world. She speaks to meaning and order in a chaotic world. She speaks to integrity in ambiguity. Like Wonder Woman, we live in ambiguity, but we have to live, so we stake our commitments and move forward, doing the best that we can. The aim of this book is appropriately ambiguous. Considering Wonder Woman philosophically is both fun and serious, so listen for pleasure and pause for contemplation.
Part 1. You are a Wonder Woman. 1. Becoming a Wonder Woman. Feminism, Nationalism, and the Ambiguity of Female Identity. J. Lenore Wright. More than 70 years have passed since the debut of Wonder Woman in All-Star Comics. To the wonder of many, Wonder Woman remains one of the most popular comic book superheroes of all time. As Jill Lepore aptly observes in The Secret History of Wonder Woman, aside from Superman and Batman, no other comic book character has lasted as long. What, precisely, gives Wonder Woman her wondrous staying power in the American popular consciousness? Her overt femininity, need I mention the bustier, boots, and bracelets? Coupled with her Amazonian strength and speed, she was both stronger than Hercules and swifter than Mercury, crosses gender and generational divides. The raven-haired beauty emboldened a generation of men reared on pin-ups and promises to fight fascism in World War II. The lasso-wielding freedom fighter empowered women to leave the domestic sphere for the public sphere and take control of their lives and livelihood. The lone female founder of the Justice League of America, formerly known as the Justice Society of America, inspired countercultural Americans to voice stories of struggle and alienation. Today, the tiara-wearing heroine's combined fierceness and frivolity appeals to readers' fluid understanding of gender norms and identities. Ironically, it is Wonder Woman's ambiguity that makes her appeal so enduring. Wonder Woman is a walking, and sometimes flying, paradox of attributions and images. She is, at once, a female sex symbol and feminist icon, physically enchanting, psychically vulnerable, morally virtuous, financially independent, self-determining, and, in tune with her womanly ways, self-sacrificing. She was meant to be the strongest, smartest, bravest woman the world has ever seen, writes Lepore. In short, Wonder Woman represents a robust, modern conception of American womanhood. This chapter explores the complexities of Wonder Woman's identity as she navigates male and female spheres of existence to embody a modern American ideal. The French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, 1908 to 1986, maintains, in The Ethics of Ambiguity, 1947, and The Second Sex, 1949, that sexual differences shape human existence insofar as society offers men and women different possibilities for expressing who they are and what they desire. Whereas man actively creates his destiny, woman passively accepts her uncertain existence. The critical feminist task is for women to transcend barriers to freedom so they can begin to forge their identities and enjoy self-fulfillment. Wonder Woman exemplifies this woman of tomorrow. Wiser and stronger than men, she gives up her right to eternal life and commitment to remain aloof from men to join her love interest, Captain Steve Trevor, an Army intelligence officer, in America, and defend democracy and equal rights for women. Wonder Woman challenges established social roles and the assumed facticity of life by creating her identity in the world, an identity born out of sacrifice and pain. In becoming who she is, in making a new life in a new country under a new name, Wonder Woman gives new meaning to Beauvoir's claim that one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. What is a woman? On the cusp of her 40th birthday, Simone de Beauvoir became preoccupied with the question, what has it meant to me to be a woman? Previously, she had insisted that women's lives were no different from men's lives. Beauvoir initially rejected the term feminist to describe herself and distanced herself from feminist thought. Yet, as she considered the condition of women further, she realized that being a woman had shaped her experiences in profound ways. Beauvoir writes, "I looked, and it was a revelation. The world was a masculine world. My childhood had been nourished by myths formed by men, and I hadn't reacted to them in the same way I should have done if I had been a boy." Beauvoir adopts the question, what is a woman, as the guiding question of her pivotal feminist text, The Second Sex, 1949, in which she observes that despite significant social and cultural differences worldwide, women share the experience of being dependent persons. Men, by contrast, are independent. They are the creators and prime examples of absolute rules and values in a fixed patriarchal system. Man, then, defines humanity. Thus, humanity is male, and man defines woman not in herself, but relative to him. She is not regarded as an autonomous being, and she is simply what man decrees. Thus, she is called the sex, by which is meant that she appears essentially to the male as a sexual being. She is the incidental, the inessential, as opposed to the essential. She is the subject. He is the absolute. She is the other. In defining humanity, man pursues a freely chosen future. He invents tools and creates values that allow him to transcend the repetition of life. Woman, bound by her body, bound by what Beauvoir characterizes as her immanence in reproduction, is imprisoned in the repetition of life. She is unable to subdue her body or control her future. Historically speaking, pregnancy and childbirth reduce women's capacity for work and make them dependent upon men for protection and food. This was particularly true before the advent of reliable birth control. Of course, Amazons don't have this worry. Woman is thus immanent rather than transcendent, dependent rather than independent, and therefore denied her very humanity. Beauvoir embraces the philosophical leanings of her romantic partner and intellectual companion, Jean-Paul Sartre, 1905 to 1980, who advances the existentialist idea that individuals are responsible for determining who they are and what meaning their lives bear. Similarly, Beauvoir maintains that women, like men, must look reality squarely in the face and assume a responsibility for changing it by engaging in a struggle for freedom. Marston anticipates and aids Beauvoir's call in the figure of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's feminist spirit originates in her ancestry. We learn in the introductory issue, All Stars Comics, number 8, December 1941 to January 1942, that Wonder Woman is the daughter of Hippolyte, Queen of Amazonia, an ancient Greek nation ruled for centuries by women. Threatened by the Amazons' autonomy and power, Hercules attempts to defeat the Amazons through combat. He loses, but through deceit and trickery, he manages to secure the magic girdle created by Aphrodite to ensure Hippolyte's success. The Amazons are enslaved until their degradation becomes unbearable. Aphrodite takes pity on Amazonia and returns the magic girdle to Hippolyte, who overcomes the male captors, flees Amazonia with her female subjects, and establishes a new world on an uncharted island they name Paradise Island. Like the historic path of liberation for modern women, the Amazons' liberation is not without conditions. Aphrodite also decreed that we must always wear these bracelets fashioned by our captors, as a reminder that we must always keep aloof from men. Wonder Woman, who later acquires the name Diana after her godmother, the goddess of the moon, threatens this newly established order when Wonder Woman falls in love with an American captain who crash-lands his airplane on Paradise Island. Her mother warns, "So long as we do not permit ourselves to be again beguiled by men, we are indeed a race of Wonder Women." That was the promise of Aphrodite, and we must keep our promise to her if we are to remain here safe and in peace. That is why this American must go, and as soon as possible. Despite Wonder Woman's respect for her mother's authority and commitment to women's independence, romantic love prevails. Wonder Woman gives up eternal life. That's right, eternal life, and her beloved home on Paradise Island for Captain Trevor. Like modern women everywhere, Wonder Woman sacrifices her self-interest for the sake of womanhood, devotion and service to men above fidelity to oneself. Patriarchy assigns women this familiar secondary role. Yet, like the modern women Marston envisions and seeks to inspire, Wonder Woman does not relinquish her independent identity entirely. She transfers her nationalist commitments to her new homeland of America, the land she learns to love and protect. She both embraces and subverts traditional female roles, thereby challenging prevailing notions of womanhood. Lepore observes that Wonder Woman's shifting identity and iconographic representation from the 1940s to the present mirrors ongoing and often inconsistent constructions of womanhood. Wonder Woman isn't only an Amazonian princess with badass boots. She's the missing link in a chain of events that begins with the women's suffrage campaign of the 1910s and ends with the troubled pace of feminism fully a century later. Feminism made Wonder Woman, and then Wonder Woman remade feminism, which hasn't been altogether good for feminism. Superheroes, who are supposed to be better than everyone else, are excellent at clobbering people. They're lousy at fighting for equality. In 1910, the terms Amazon and New Woman were applied to women who rebelled against social norms, left home, and attended college. Feminism, a term rarely used before 1910, was common by 1913. Feminism meant advocacy of women's rights and freedoms, and a vision of equality marked different from that embraced by the woman movement of the 19th century, which had been founded less on a principle of equality than a set of ideas about women's moral superiority. Marston tethered the feminist philosophy of Wonder Woman to the progressive views of early feminists, views he inherited from his beloved professor of philosophy, George Herbert Palmer. Palmer supported women's suffrage and women's education on the grounds that girls are also human beings, a point often overlooked. But Marston also understood and at times empathized with the social and political forces that vie against women's equality, real as well as symbolic forces that keep women dependent on men. It's fitting, then, that the singular weakness he gives to Wonder Woman, loss of strength, occurs whenever a man binds her in chains. Equality in theory is well and good. In practice, however, even Wonder Woman is subject to male power. The fantasy of American women throughout the early 20th century is realized again and again in the adventures of Wonder Woman: to escape. In the words of Annie Lucasta, Lou Rogers, a feminist cartoonist and colleague of Wonder Woman cartoonist Harry G. Peter, she and other women wanted to know how to arrange the world so that women can be human beings, with a chance to exercise their infinitely varied gifts in infinitely varied ways, instead of being destined by the accident of their sex to one field of activity: housework and child-raising. Embedded in Rogers' claim is an idea fleshed out by Marston and Peter in the character of Wonder Woman, and theorized by Beauvoir. The ambiguity of existence should enrich women's lives and expand their capacity for self-definition, not confine them to a less significant and/or diverse existence. Self-identity, then, is a philosophical and political endeavor. Unless women resist the prescribed identity and artificial essence assigned to them, women are the weaker sex, women are objects, women are inherently feminine, and therefore submissive, and claim the freedom to define for themselves who and what they are, women will never be fully human. In Linda Stein's words, the Wonder Woman stories express Marston's belief that individuals free of gender stereotypes are also free to develop to their full potential. Wonder Woman realizes the critical link between personal emancipation and collective liberation. "I'll rely on myself, and not a man," she tells Prudence, a rescuee. The defender of democracy develops her abilities, pursues economic opportunities, and addresses world problems. Moreover, she illustrates the existential and political value of freedom from male oppression. "What a sweet sound! My man-made bonds have snapped. My woman's power returns again." Wonder Woman number 4, April through May, 1943. Wonder Woman's self-empowerment is a productive model of female transcendence. The ambiguously feminist superhero. For Wonder Woman and her early readers, the personal is political, as the feminist slogan goes. Mitra C. Ahmad argues that Peter's iconographic blending of politics and personhood, star-spangled tights on a sensuous female form, invite women of the war generation to see themselves in Wonder Woman's narrative of American exceptionalism and achievement. Until his death in 1947, Marston, in collaboration with artist Harry G. Peter, produced a comic in which the hero, while often saving Captain Trevor, primarily saved helpless women from imminent death and destruction, attempting also to empower women to look after themselves and discover their own physical and economic strengths. Girls are taught that if they feel they can do things, so they can do them, and women are exhorted to get strong and earn your own living. The overlaying of politics in Wonder Woman's ageless yet ever-changing body, however, creates a philosophical quandary. The nation is a man's domain, and nationalism is a man's game. The body is a woman's domain, and embodiment a woman's game. Hence, appending national identity to woman's identity creates oppositional encounters between masculine, public ideals, and feminine, private ideals. It also creates a tension between purported sources of power, political authority, or political influence. The super-powerful warrior, free from traditional gender norms, fights monsters and men, flaunting the unlimited power of the state. The super-feminine woman, bound by traditional gender norms, enacts an attractive, heteronormative identity, surreptitiously creating her own furtive field of influence among uber-powerful men. How is one to understand the conflicting ideals Wonder Woman embraces? She is a modern superwoman who must make hard choices about which spheres of society to enter, and thus which elements of identity to surrender or proclaim. In short, she must relinquish some freedom to become a woman, i.e., to be subdued, sexualized, and made safe for a man's world. Women are in an ambiguous position. A woman can pursue her freedom by rejecting societal norms and expectations, and consequently be outcast, thus subverting her attempt at freedom. Or she can adopt these norms and standards and thereby subvert her subjectivity. A woman must navigate between two worlds, treading a fine line between transcendence and immanence, subject and object, freedom and servitude. The feminist philosophy of Wonder Woman is ambiguous indeed. Marston and his collaborators exploit Wonder Woman's ambiguity by invoking distinct male and female spheres of activity. They then judiciously elevate one sphere and one correlative identity above the other. Which sphere gets privileged varies according to the cultural context in which the comic is produced. In a wartime edition of Wonder Woman comics, Wonder Woman number 5, June through July 1943, a period in which women assumed vacated male positions to facilitate military success, George Washington appears as a symbol not of patriotism, but patriarchy, poised to undermine women's emerging equality. "Women will lose the war for America," he declares. "Women will betray their country through weakness, if not treachery." Marston places gender above nationalism in rendering George Washington in such unpatriotic tones, Ahmad explains. In other words, Marston seems to say, nationalism at the expense of women's power remains a conventional nationalism that must be subject to critique. The push for social change throughout the Marston era of Wonder Woman comics is a boon to first and second wave feminists. Marston develops themes and images empowering to women and affirming of their intellectual and economic interests, normal human females successfully acting as presidents, professors, and police officers. This progressive trend falters, however, under the economic and social pressures of World War II and the post-war era. Men re-enter the workforce, reassert their authority, and reclaim their privileged economic positions. Women return to the domestic sphere and resume household and child-care duties they do not necessarily enjoy or find fulfilling, as Betty Friedman documents in The Feminine Mystique, 1963. Wonder Woman writers and artists follow suit. Steve Trevor reminds Wonder Woman that she is only a woman, after all, in the fall 1944 issue of Comic Cavalcade, number 8. He then persuades her to marry him. She needs a man to protect her, he avers. She responds in kind. "Steve, dear, now that we're going to be married, won't you please let me be your secretary?" Her first assignment is to type the following memo. "Every woman's place is in the home, and girls should not try to do the work of men. They should be kept busy keeping house for their husbands." Between the 1960s and 2000s, Wonder Woman's power is steadily realigned with femininity and sexuality, expressions of women's inescapable embodiment. Wonder Woman's battle with a creature...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?